Okay, I'm a little confused here.
Oh my, can I help?
Some TV shows didn't just write characters out, they straight up buried them, sometimes with a laugh track playing over the tombstone. And with that, we got some of the most shocking, heartbreaking, and downright bizarre moments in television history. Today, we're counting down the sitcom character deaths that left us speechless, the moments when comedy took a hard left turn into tragedy. 1. Phil Hartman as Bill McNeil News Radio.
Yeah, what if they don't need a news announcer?
Yeah.
I have other talents. WNYX, you're home for the hits in New York City.
For 4 seasons, Phil Hartman was the soul of news radio. As the arrogant, insecure, and hilariously bombastic news anchor Bill McNeil, he was a comedic force of nature. Hartman was a genius, a master of voices and characters, and Bill McNeil was one of his greatest creations. The show was a brilliant ensemble comedy set in a New York radio station, but Hartman was its undeniable MVP. His on-air rants, his petty rivalries with his co-workers, and his moments of surprising vulnerability made Bill a complex and beloved character. The show was a critical darling, a smart and funny series with a devoted following, and Hartman was its heart. And then everything flips upside down. In 1998, between the show's 4th and 5th seasons, Phil Hartman was tragically murdered in a shocking real-life event that stunned the world. The cast and crew of news radio were left with an impossible task. How do you continue a comedy after losing your comedic anchor in such a horrific way? They chose to face the tragedy head-on. The 5th season premiere opened with the characters returning to work after Bill McNeil's funeral. The episode revealed that Bill had died from a sudden heart attack, a quiet and mundane end for such a larger-than-life character. The episode is a masterclass in television, a heartbreaking and beautifully written tribute to both the character and the actor who played him. The rest of the cast, including Dave Foley, Maura Tierney, and Stephen Root, deliver incredible performances, their real-life grief bleeding through into their characters' reactions. You won't believe what came next. To fill the void left by Hartman, the show brought in his real-life friend and Saturday Night Live co-star, John Lovitz, to play a new character. But the show was never the same. It was canceled at the end of that season, a brilliant sitcom that simply couldn't recover from the loss of its heart. The death of Bill McNeil was a tribute to a real-life tragedy, but our next character was eliminated off in a shocking season premiere that felt like a betrayal to many fans. 2. Valerie Hogan /The Hogan Family.
From now on, you are old enough to have your own set of car keys.
Oh, I agree, Mom. I had my own set made up.
In the mid-'80s, Valerie was a solid hit for NBC. Starring Valerie Harper, the beloved actress from The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Rhoda, the sitcom was a warm and funny look at a modern mom trying to raise 3 boys. The show was a ratings success and a staple of the network's comedy lineup. But behind the scenes, a bitter contract dispute was brewing between Valerie Harper and the show's producers. Harper was demanding a bigger salary and a larger creative role in the series. The producers refused, and the dispute became increasingly hostile. Here's where it all takes a sharp turn. Instead of negotiating, the producers made a ruthless and unprecedented decision. They fired their star from her own show. When the show returned for its 3rd season, it had a new title, Valerie's Family, which would later be changed again to The Hogan Family. In the season premiere, the family is shown grieving. The audience soon learns that the character of Valerie Hogan has died in an off-screen car accident. It was a shocking and cold-blooded move. The show brought in veteran actress Sandy Duncan to play Valerie's sister, who moves in to help raise the kids. While the show managed to survive for several more seasons, the controversy surrounding Harper's firing and the cold, off-screen death of its original main character left a permanent stain on its legacy. It was a brutal reminder that in the world of television, no star is irreplaceable. Valerie Hogan was a victim of contract disputes, but our next character's death was a surprisingly dark and realistic moment in an otherwise lighthearted sitcom. 3. Mr. Hooper, Sesame Street. For over a decade, Mr. Hooper, the gentle, bow-tied proprietor of Hooper's store, was one of the most beloved adult characters on Sesame Street. Played by actor Will Lee, he was a kind and patient friend to all the residents of the street, both human and Muppet. He was particularly close with Big Bird, who would often mispronounce his name as Mr. Looper. He was a constant, comforting presence on the show, a grandfatherly figure who was as much a part of the fabric of Sesame Street as Oscar's trash can or the famous stoop. But then something totally unexpected happened. In 1982, actor Will Lee passed away from a heart attack. The producers of Sesame Street were faced with a difficult choice. They could simply say that Mr. Hooper had moved away or retired, the typical way children's shows handle the departure of an actor. But they decided to do something groundbreaking and brave. They chose to have the character of Mr. Hooper die as well, and to use his death as a way to teach their young audience about the difficult and confusing concept of death. In a now legendary episode, the adult cast gently explains to Big Bird that Mr. Hooper is not coming back. The scene is honest, heartbreaking, and beautifully handled. It's a powerful and poignant moment that treated its young audience with intelligence and respect. The decision to tackle such a difficult subject head-on was a landmark moment in children's television. Mr. Hooper's death was a landmark in children's television, but our next character's demise was a shocking on-screen event that proved even main characters weren't safe. 4. Maude Flanders, The Simpsons. For 10 seasons, Maude Flanders was the sweet, devout, and patiently moral center next door to the hurricane of chaos that was the Simpson family. As the wife of the relentlessly cheerful Ned Flanders, her gentle, oh heavens, and unwavering piety made her a pillar of the Springfield community and the perfect understated foil to Homer's antics. In the world of The Simpsons, where very little ever truly changed, Maude was a constant. But here's where the show took a sharp, unexpected turn. In the season 11 episode, Alone Again, Natra Diddley, the Flanders family is at the Springfield Speedway. Homer, wanting to get a free t-shirt, goads the cheerleaders to fire their cannons into the crowd. He ducks at the last second, and the barrage of shirts strikes an unsuspecting Maude, knocking her from the top of the grandstand to her death. The real shocker was the reason why. The character was eliminated after a pay dispute with voice actress Maggie Roswell. When negotiations to cover her travel costs for recording fell through, the producers made the stunning decision to permanently kill off a long-standing character. It was a dark and shocking moment that proved no one, not even the sweet lady next door, was safe from a brutal, punchline-driven demise. Our next character's death was played for laughs in one of the most controversial sitcom episodes of all time. 5. Susan Ross, Seinfeld.
I'm sorry. She's gone. What's up? She expired.
On Seinfeld, a show famous for its no hugging, no learning mantra, George Costanza's long-suffering fiancée, Susan Ross, was often the voice of reason in a world of neurotic chaos. She was a kind, intelligent, and stable woman who somehow fell in love with the human train wreck that was George. Their engagement was the central arc of the show's 7th season, a storyline that seemed to be heading towards an actual wedding. But as the season progressed, it became clear that George was miserable and desperate to get out of the engagement. The wild part is, the show's co-creator, Larry David, had written himself into a corner. He needed a way to end the engagement without making George the villain for simply breaking a woman's heart. So he came up with a solution so dark and so hilarious it could only happen on Seinfeld. In the season finale, Susan is tasked with mailing out the wedding invitations. George, being cheap, has purchased old, low-quality envelopes with toxic glue. As Susan licks envelope after envelope, she is slowly poisoned. She dies off-screen at the hospital. Her final scene is her complaining about feeling dizzy. The show treated her death not as a tragedy, but as an inconvenience for George. The episode ends with him calling Marisa Tomei to ask her out on a date. It was a shocking, brilliant, and deeply cynical end for a major character, a perfect encapsulation of the show's gleefully misanthropic spirit. Susan's death was a moment of shocking cynicism, but our next character's demise was a genuine tragedy that forced a popular sitcom to reboot itself. 6. Paul Hennessy. 8. Simple rules.
Let's do the show like we've always done the show. Let's not let it change us at all right?
In the early 2000s, 8 Simple Rules for Dating. My Teenage Daughter was a solid hit for ABC. The show starred the legendary John Ritter as Paul Hennessy, a sports writer who starts working from home to help his wife, Kate, played by Katie Sagal, raise their 3 teenage children. Ritter was a master of physical comedy and heartfelt sincerity, and the show was a perfect vehicle for his talents. It was a warm, funny, and relatable family sitcom powered by Ritter's incredible charm. The show was a ratings success and was poised for a long and healthy run. But here's where everything flips upside down. In September of 2003, during production of the show's 2nd season, John Ritter suddenly fell ill on set. He was rushed to the hospital, where he tragically passed away from an undiagnosed aortic dissection. The cast, crew, and the entire television world were devastated. The show was put on an immediate hiatus as the writers and producers struggled with an impossible decision: how to move forward without their beloved star. They made the brave choice to incorporate Ritter's death into the show. The series returned with a powerful 1-hour episode where the family learns of Paul's sudden off-screen death. The episode is a raw and heartbreaking tribute, with the actors' genuine grief clearly visible in their performances. The show was then retooled, bringing in veteran actors James Garner and David Spade to fill the void. While it managed to last for another season, it was never the same. The loss of John Ritter was a blow from which the show, both on-screen and off, could never fully recover. The death of Paul Hennessy was a heartbreaking reality, but our next character's death was a shocking twist that changed the entire dynamic of a classic 80s sitcom. 7. Debbie Wolowitz, The Big Bang Theory.
Senior fitness was canceled. It turns out you can forget how to ride a bike.
Debbie Wolowitz never appeared on screen, but her presence loomed large over The Big Bang Theory. As Howard's overbearing, loud-voiced mother shouted from off-screen by the brilliant Carol Ann Susie, she was a comedic force, nagging her son with love and exasperation. Her smothering affection and unseen antics, like yelling about meatloaf or her bathroom emergencies, were a running gag that defined Howard's neurotic charm. But then everything flips upside down. In Season 8, Episode 15, The Comic Book Store Regeneration aired February 19, 2015. The gang learns that Debbie has passed away suddenly while on a trip in Florida. The news hits like a freight train, turning a show known for its geeky laughs into a raw, emotional gut punch. Howard's grief, mixed with his friend's awkward but heartfelt support, especially from Stuart, who lived with Debbie, is both heartbreaking and real. The episode balances humor with sorrow as the gang reflects on her larger-than-life impact. You won't believe what came next. The show used her death to deepen Howard's character, showing his struggle to move forward without her voice echoing through the house. It was a shocking, tender moment that proved even an unseen character could leave a massive void in a sitcom's heart. Now, our next character's death was a moment of pure on-screen shock that left audiences breathless. 8. Larry Harris, Perfect Strangers.
You're it.
Perfect Strangers was a zany 80s sitcom, a buddy comedy about the clashing cultures of American Larry Appleton and his Balkan cousin Balky. But even this light-hearted show could deliver a gut punch. Larry's father, Larry Harris, played by John Anderson, appeared occasionally as a gruff but loving patriarch. Then came the part nobody expected. In the season 5 episode Bye Bye Birdie, aired November 2nd, 1990, the show reveals off-screen that Larry's father has died suddenly of a heart attack. The episode takes a sharp turn from the usual slapstick, focusing on Larry's struggle to process the loss while Balky tries to cheer him up with his trademark naive optimism. Just when it all seemed figured out, the final scene hits hard. Larry breaks down, confessing his regret over never telling his dad how much he loved him. The laugh track fades, and the silence is deafening, leaving audiences stunned. It was a raw, unexpected moment of grief in a show known for goofy antics, proving perfect strangers could tackle the heavy stuff with heart-wrenching sincerity. Our next character's death was a shockingly violent end for a recurring character on a show known for its sunny disposition. 9. Chuckles the Clown, The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
So go ahead, my dear. Laugh for Chuckles.
The episode is titled Chuckles Bites the Dust, and it is widely considered to be one of the single greatest sitcom episodes of all time. The premise is simple. Chuckles the Clown, the beloved host of a children's television show at the same station where Mary and her friends work, has died in a freak accident. While leading a parade dressed as Peter Peanut, an elephant tried to shell him. The death itself is absurd and played for dark humor. The episode revolves around the newsroom staff's inappropriate and often hilarious reactions to the tragedy. Everyone, that is, except for Mary, who is appalled by her friend's jokes and insists that death is not something to be laughed at. The episode builds towards Chuckles' funeral, where Mary is determined to maintain a somber and respectful demeanor. But here's where everything flips upside down. As the minister delivers a ridiculous eulogy listing all of Chuckles' silly characters, Peter Peanut, Mr. Fee-Fee-Fo, and a little ditty he was working on, a cup and a saucer, Mary finally breaks. She erupts into an uncontrollable fit of laughter, unable to contain the absurdity of it all. It's a brilliant, hilarious, and deeply human moment. The episode perfectly captures the strange, complex, and often absurd ways we deal with grief, and it remains a masterclass in comedic writing. The death of Chuckles the Clown was a comedic masterpiece, but our next character's death was a moment of genuine, heartbreaking tragedy in a show about a wacky alien. 10. Charlie Harper, 2.5 Men.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go throw up and take a nap.
On the raucous sitcom 2.5 Men, Charlie Harper was the king of hedonism. Played with smarmy charm by Charlie Sheen, he was a jingle-writing, womanizing bachelor whose carefree lifestyle defined the show's early seasons. His Malibu beach house, endless cocktails, and sarcastic banter with his brother Alan made him the chaotic heart of the comedy. But then everything flips upside down. In the season 9 premiere, Nice to Meet You, Walden Schmidt, aired September 19, 2011. The show drops a bombshell. Charlie has been eliminated off-screen, hit by a subway train in Paris after a wild bender. The revelation comes during a funeral where his exes and friends roast his memory with biting humor. The real shocker was still to come. Behind the scenes, Sheen's public feud with creator Chuck Lorre led to his firing, and the show replaced him with Ashton Kutcher's Walden Schmidt. The episode's dark, irreverent tone, complete with a coffin mishap, perfectly captured the show's crude humor, but Charlie's brutal exit left fans reeling. It was a jaw-dropping twist that turned a frat boy comedy into a tabloid-fueled spectacle, forever changing the show's vibe. Our next character's death was a shocking, season-ending cliffhanger that left fans reeling for an entire summer. 11. Rosalind Shay's L.A. Law. Okay, another drama, but the moment was so shocking and so bizarrely comedic, it has to be on the list. On the hit legal drama L.A. Law, Rosalind Shays, played by Diana Muldaur, was the firm's ruthless, brilliant, and universally despised managing partner. She was a true villain, a corporate shark who delighted in making the lives of the show's beloved main characters miserable. Fans loved to hate her. In a now legendary episode, Rosalind is in the middle of a tense conversation with her rival, Leland Mackenzie. The two are standing in the hallway waiting for an elevator. The doors open. She takes one step into the elevator shaft and plummets to her death down the empty shaft. The real shocker was still to come. The show doesn't linger on the tragedy. Instead, it cuts to Leland's shocked but vaguely satisfied face. The death of the show's main villain wasn't a moment of high drama. It was a moment of sudden, absurd, and darkly funny shock value. It was a completely unexpected and bizarre end for a major character, a moment so surprising it has become one of television's most famous and infamous death scenes. Rosalind Shays went down the elevator shaft, but our next character's death was a real-life tragedy that forced a beloved 80s sitcom to say a heartbreaking on-screen goodbye. 12. Selma Diamond as Selma Hacker Night Court.
Hello?
I thought you quit.
For the first 2 seasons of the classic sitcom Night Court, Selma Diamond was a comedic powerhouse as Selma Hacker, the court's chain-smoking, gravelly-voiced, and perpetually unimpressed bailiff. She was a veteran of comedy, a former writer for Sid Caesar and Groucho Marx, and she brought a world-weary authenticity to the role. Her deadpan delivery and her constant, sarcastic commentary on the courtroom's chaos were a highlight of the show. She was the perfect foil for the show's optimistic young judge, Harry Stone. But here's where everything flips upside down. Between the show's 2nd and 3rd seasons, Selma Diamond tragically passed away from lung cancer. The show paid tribute to her in the 3rd season premiere. The characters learn that Selma has died, and they spend the episode reminiscing about her and sharing their memories. The episode is a sweet and heartfelt tribute to a beloved cast member. The show would go on to have a long and successful run with 2 more actresses, Florence Halep and Marsha Warfield, playing the role of the bailiff, but for many fans, the original, gravelly-voiced Selma was irreplaceable. Selma's death was a sad reality, but our next character's death was a shocking on-screen event that proved that even a show's main character wasn't safe. 13. Dan Connor Roseanne.
You and your fat wife think of my new hat.
Just this once.
For 8 seasons, Dan Connor, played by the great John Goodman, was one of the most beloved TV dads of all time. He was a funny, flawed, and deeply loving husband and father. The relationship between Dan and Roseanne was the heart of the show. Then came the 9th and final season, a season that is widely considered to be one of the strangest and most controversial in sitcom history. In this season, the Connor family wins the lottery, and the show abandons its realistic, working-class roots for a series of bizarre, fantasy-like episodes. In the middle of this strange season, Dan suffers a heart attack at his daughter's wedding. He survives, and the show goes on. But just when it all seemed figured out, the series finale delivered a shocking, last-minute twist. In a voiceover, Roseanne reveals that the entire 9th season has been a fantasy she wrote to cope with a devastating reality. Dan did not survive his heart attack. He had actually died. The final shot of the series is of Roseanne, alone in her living room, having imagined an entire year of her life differently. It was a shocking, heartbreaking, and deeply divisive ending that recontextualized the entire final season. The death of Dan Connor was a shocking final twist, but our next character's death was a quiet off-screen event that left a major hole in one of TV's most iconic sitcoms. 14. Nicholas Coach Colasanto as Coach Cheers.
Wow, come on, what are you doing? Oh, Sammy, I think he snapped. Come, Coach. What are you laughing at?
That! One board every minute, huh,
For the first 3 seasons of Cheers, Coach Ernie Pantuso was the lovable, dim-witted, and endlessly sweet bartender who served as the bar's gentle soul. Played by veteran actor Nicholas Colasanto, Coach was famous for his bizarre, rambling stories and his complete inability to understand a joke. He was the perfect father figure to the bar's staff and regulars, a character with a genuine warmth and heart that grounded the show's cynical humor. But the wild part is, behind the scenes, Colasanto was in poor health, suffering from a heart condition that was exacerbated by his alcoholism. His health declined during the show's 3rd season, and he passed away before the season finale was filmed. The show's creators decided to have the character of Coach pass away as well. His death is addressed in the 4th season premiere in a heartfelt and emotional episode where the characters learn that their beloved friend has died. The show brought in a new character, the even more dim-witted Woody Boyd, played by Woody Harrelson, to fill the void. While Woody became a beloved character in his own right, the loss of Coach was a profound one that changed the dynamic of the show forever. Coach's death was a heartbreaking loss, but our next character's death was a shocking twist that revealed a dark secret about a seemingly happy family. 15. Edith Bunker Archie Bunker's Place. For 8 seasons on All in the Family, Edith Bunker was one of the most beloved characters in television history. Gene Stapleton's portrayal of the sweet, loving, and often oblivious dingbat wife of the bigoted Archie Bunker was a masterclass in comedic acting. But after 8 seasons, Stapleton had grown tired of the role and wanted to move on. Instead of ending the show, the producers retooled it into Archie Bunker's Place. The show focused on Archie's life after he buys his local bar. For the first season, Edith was a recurring character, and then everything flips upside down. At the beginning of the 2nd season, the audience learns that Edith has died off-screen from a stroke. The season premiere is a powerful, dramatic episode that shows Archie struggling to cope with the loss of his beloved wife. It's a heartbreaking and beautifully acted episode, with Carol O'Connor delivering an incredible dramatic performance. The decision to kill off such an iconic and beloved character was a brave and shocking one, a move that gave the show a new layer of pathos and tragedy. The death of Edith Bunker was a moment of genuine tragedy, but our next character's death was a shocking moment of violence that changed a beloved family sitcom forever. 16. James Evans, Sr., Good Times.
Now get this straight. Jesus has nothing to do with love. Hey, man, get over here. Get over here.
Good Times, a spin-off of Maude, was a groundbreaking sitcom about the Evans family, a poor but loving African-American family living in the projects of Chicago. The patriarch of the family was James Evans Sr., played by actor John Amos. James was a strong, proud, and often struggling father who worked multiple jobs to provide for his family. He was the show's anchor, a powerful and dignified presence. But from the outside, it seemed simple, until you dig deeper. Behind the scenes, John Amos was clashing with the show's producers. He was unhappy with the direction of the show, particularly the increasing focus on his son, JJ's dynamite, catchphrase, and buffoonish antics. He felt the show was becoming a cartoon and was losing its realistic, dramatic edge. The disputes became so intense that at the end of the 3rd season, the producers fired him. And then came the part nobody expected. In the 4th season premiere, the family receives a telegram. James, who had just found a promising new job in Mississippi, has been eliminated in a car accident. The episode that follows is one of the most powerful and heartbreaking in sitcom history, as the family struggles to deal with the sudden, tragic loss of their father. The decision to kill off the main character was a shocking and controversial one that fundamentally changed the show forever. The death of James Evans was a shocking creative decision, but our next character's death was a moment of surreal, dark comedy that has become legendary. 17. Pat the Cabbage, The Kids in the Hall.
Maybe I'll just have a salad. Thanks! Why won't you let me forget that I have a cabbage for a head?
The Canadian sketch comedy troupe. The Kids in the Hall was famous for its surreal, bizarre, and often unsettling brand of humor. But nothing was more bizarre than the recurring saga of Pat, the office worker who was so boring and pathetic that his coworkers decided to fake his death to throw him a pity party. In a series of sketches, we see them plan the fake funeral, only to have Pat actually, accidentally, fall to his death from a window during the party. But here's where everything flips upside down. In a later sketch, we see Pat's ghost, now forced to haunt his old office. But he's just as boring as a ghost as he was in life. The other ghosts bully him. The whole saga was a brilliant long-form exploration of existential dread and workplace ennui, a story that was both hilarious and deeply, deeply sad. It was a perfect example of the show's unique ability to find humor in the darkest of places. The death of Pat the Cabbage was a surreal masterpiece, but our next character's death was a moment of genuine heartbreak in a show famous for its cynicism. 18. Laverne, DeFazio Laverne, and Shirley.
Mrs. Chomsky, hi, how you doing? Oh, that finger, I remember that. This is just like This Is Your Life.
Sit down, sit down.
This is a strange one because Laverne never actually died on the show. But in the show's final season, her death was implied in a way that left fans baffled and upset. Laverne and Shirley was one of the most popular sitcoms of the 70s and 80s, a show about two best friends and roommates working at a brewery in Milwaukee. The chemistry between Penny Marshall as Laverne and Cindy Williams as Shirley was the heart and soul of the show. But here's where everything flips upside down. At the beginning of the 8th and final season, Cindy Williams abruptly left the show due to a contract dispute and her real-life pregnancy. The show was suddenly without one of its two main characters. The writers tried to explain Shirley's absence by saying she had gotten married to an Army medic and moved overseas. The show then limped through a final awkward season centered solely on Laverne. In the series finale, Laverne has a dream sequence where she imagines Shirley returning as a ghost. The implication was that Shirley had died while serving overseas. It was a bizarre, depressing, and completely unnecessary final note for a show that had once been so full of joy and slapstick fun. The implied death of Shirley was a strange and depressing end, but our next character's death was a moment of on-screen tragedy that redefined what a sitcom could be. 19. Principal Moorhead, head of the class.
You know, all the other substitutes have been really dumb. You're not half as dumb as they were.
Half a thank you, Janice.
Head of the Class was a warm and funny 80s sitcom about a group of gifted high school students and their unconventional history teacher, Charlie Moore. For the first 3 seasons, the school's principal was a stuffy, by-the-book administrator named Dr. Samuels. But in Season 4, he was replaced by a new, even more hilarious character, Principal Ezekiel Zeke Moorhead, played by the brilliant character actor William G. Schilling. Principal Moorhead was a former drill sergeant who ran the school with military precision, and his constant bellowing clashes with the laid-back Charlie Moore were a highlight of the later seasons. But then something totally unexpected happened. In a very special episode, the students learned that Principal Moorhead has died of a heart attack while on a school trip to the Soviet Union. The episode that follows is a powerful and moving exploration of grief as the students and faculty come to terms with the loss of a man they often clashed with but had grown to respect. It was a shocking and unexpected death for a major comedic character, and it was handled with a surprising amount of grace and sensitivity. It was another example of a sitcom bravely using the death of a character to explore real, complex emotions. The death of Principal Moorhead was a moment of surprising grace, but our final character's death is the one that started it all, a moment of shocking tragedy that changed the rules of television forever. 20. Henry Blake, M.A.S.H. We have to return to this one because it is, without a doubt, the most shocking and influential sitcom death of all time. For the first 3 seasons of the iconic sitcom MASH, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, played by the brilliant McLean Stevenson, was the bumbling but beloved commanding officer of the 4077. He was a decent man who was completely overwhelmed by the chaos of the war and the antics of his staff. In the final episode of the 3rd season, titled Abyssinia, Henry, the character finally gets his discharge papers and is heading home. The episode is a classic farewell, full of funny and emotional goodbyes as Henry leaves the war behind. The episode seems to be over, with the characters reflecting on his departure. And then everything flips upside down. In the final scene, a distraught Radar O'Reilly enters the operating room and announces, "I have a message. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. It spun in. There were no survivors." The stunned silence that followed, both on screen and in living rooms across America, was deafening. Eliminating off a beloved main character, especially in a sitcom, was completely unheard of at the time. The decision was made in secret by the show's producers after McLean Stevenson decided to leave the show for a more lucrative network deal. The backlash from viewers was massive. The network was flooded with angry letters. But the show's creators defended their decision, arguing that it was a powerful reminder that in war, there are no happy endings. It remains one of the most shocking and impactful moments in television history, a moment that proved that even a comedy could deliver a gut punch that would be felt for generations.